The neon lights of Nexus Station cast rainbow colors across the dirty floor of Murphy's Cantina. Captain Kim Tae-ho sat in the darkest corner of the bar, away from the noise and laughter of the other customers. His metal left arm caught the light as he lifted his glass of synthetic whiskey to his lips. The drink tasted like chemicals, but it was all he could afford these days. Tae-ho wore his old military jacket, the fabric worn thin from years of use. The patches on his shoulders showed he had served in the Terran Defense Corps for 23 years. Most of the alien customers in the cantina did not know what those patches meant. They only saw a tired human with scars on his face and a fake arm. The cantina was full of different alien species. Purple-skinned Veltari merchants sat at round tables, counting their profits from the day's trading. Large Korthic warriors with thick armor drank from metal cups, their deep voices echoing through the room. Tall Zephyrian diplomats and flowing robes spoke quietly in their musical language near the bar. All of them stayed away from Tae-ho's table. "Look at the broken human," whispered a Veltari trader to his companion. "I heard he lost his entire unit in some battle." "Humans are weak," replied the other Veltari. "They should not be allowed in the military. They break too easily." Tae-ho heard their words but did not react. He had heard worse things said about him and his species. After the defeat at the Crimson Nebula, where 3,000 human soldiers died and only 50 survived, many aliens believed humans were not fit for war. The cantina door opened with a soft hiss. A young human woman walked inside, looking around nervously. She had short black hair and wore the blue uniform of a galactic news reporter. Her name was Lita Hai, and she carried a small recording device in her hand. Had been covering the Galactic Council meetings for 3 months. She was new to space journalism, but she was determined to find stories that other reporters missed. Today she wanted to interview the famous Captain Kim Tae-ho, the human veteran everyone talked about but no one respected. She walked slowly toward his table, ignoring the stares from the alien customers. Her alien colleagues had warned her to stay away from Tae-ho. They said he was dangerous and unstable. They said humans who survived terrible battles often went crazy. "Captain Kim," she said softly, standing next to his table. "My name is Lita Hai. I work for Galactic News Network." "May I sit down?" Tae-ho looked up at her with tired brown eyes. His face was marked with old scars, and his black hair had streaks of gray even though he was only 45 years old. He studied her for a moment, then nodded toward the empty chair across from him. Hai sat down carefully, placing her recording device on the table. "I wanted to ask you about human military tactics. The Council is discussing new defense strategies, and I think our viewers would like to hear from someone with real experience." "Real experience," Tae-ho repeated, his voice rough from years of shouting orders on battlefields. "That's an interesting way to put it." "You fought in the Outer Rim conflicts for over 20 years, Dahai continued. "You were decorated for bravery at the Siege of Mortis Prime. You survived the Battle of the Crimson Nebula when almost everyone else died. People want to know how humans think about war." Tae-ho took another drink of his whiskey. "People want to know how we think about war? Or do they want to know why we're so bad at it?" Before Dahai could answer, loud laughter erupted from a table near the bar. 5 Korthic mercenaries were pointing at Tae-ho and making jokes in their harsh language. The largest one, with scars covering his gray skin and metal teeth gleaming in the light, stood up and walked toward their table. "Look here," the Korthic said in broken galactic standard. "It's the famous human captain, the one who let his whole army die while he ran away like a coward." The cantina became quiet. Even the bartender, a 6-armed Mexarian, stopped cleaning glasses to watch what would happen. "Vex, don't start trouble," called the bartender. "This is a peaceful place." The Korthic named Vex ignored him. He stood next to Tae-ho's table, towering over the seated human. Korthic were naturally large, with thick bones and muscles designed for their high-gravity homeworld. Vex was bigger than most, standing nearly 8 feet tall. "I heard about your battle," Vex continued, his voice getting louder. 3,000 humans went to fight. Only 50 came back. And you were one of them. How does it feel to be such a failure?" Hai gripped her recording device tighter. She had heard stories about Korthic warriors. They respected only strength and despised weakness. To them, surviving when others died was proof of cowardice, not bravery. "The humans think they can be soldiers," laughed another Korthic from across the room. "But they are too soft. Too weak. They break when real fighting starts." "Maybe we should test this one," Vex said, reaching toward Tejo's shoulder. "See if he's as weak as the others." Tejo slowly placed his glass on the table. The whiskey inside barely moved, showing how steady his hands were despite everything. He looked up at Vex with calm eyes that showed no fear or anger. "I've heard this speech before," Tejo said quietly. "From Korthic, Veltari, Zephyrians, and a dozen other species. You all say the same things. Humans are weak. Humans can't fight. Humans don't belong in the military." He stood up slowly, his metal arm making small mechanical sounds as it moved. Even standing, he was much shorter than Vex, but something in his posture made the big alien step back slightly. "Maybe you're right," Tejo continued. "Maybe humans are weak. Maybe we do break easily. Maybe we're not fit for this galaxy." The entire cantina was watching now. Dahai held her breath, wondering if she was about to witness a fight that would end very badly for the human veteran. But instead of fighting, Tejo reached into his jacket and pulled out a small credit chip. He placed it on the table next to his empty glass. "Thanks for the drink," he said to the bartender. Then he looked at Dahai. "Sorry we couldn't finish our interview. Maybe another time." He walked toward the exit, moving past Vex without looking at him. The Korthic and his friends started laughing again, making jokes about cowardly humans who ran from fights. Hai sat at the table, confused and disappointed. She had expected the famous Captain Kim Tae-ho to defend himself, to show the strength that had kept him alive through so many battles. Instead, he had just walked away as the cantina returned to normal. And the aliens went back to their drinking and talking. Guy packed up her recording device. She had no story to file tonight. Just another tale of human weakness in a galaxy that didn't respect her species. But as she prepared to leave, she noticed something the others had missed. When Tejo had stood up to face Vex, his movements had been perfectly balanced. His eyes had shown no fear, only calculation. And when he walked away, it wasn't the hurried retreat of a frightened man. It was the controlled withdrawal of a professional soldier who knew exactly what he was doing. Hai decided she would try to interview Captain Kim Tae-ho again. Something told her there was much more to this broken veteran than anyone realized. And in a galaxy where humans were constantly underestimated, that might be exactly what made them dangerous. 3 days after the incident, Murphy's Cantina, the emergency alarm bells rang throughout Nexus Station. The sound meant only one thing. Somewhere in the galaxy, people were in serious danger. Ambassador Park Min-soo rushed through the corridors of the Galactic Council building. His formal diplomatic robes flowed behind him as he hurried toward the emergency meeting chamber. As Earth's representative to the Galactic Council, he had learned to expect bad news. But the urgent tone of today's summons worried him more than usual. The council chamber was already full when Min-soo arrived. Representatives from 12 different species sat around the circular table, their faces showing concern and fear. The large viewing screen at the front of the room displayed a star map with one system flashing red. Council leader Thyrix, a tall Veltari with purple skin and golden eyes, called for silence. Her voice carried the authority of someone who had led the galaxy's most powerful alliance for over 30 years. "Members of the Council," Thyrix began, "we have received an emergency transmission from the mining colony on Kepler 442b. The message arrived 6 hours ago, and we have been unable to establish further contact since then." She activated the playback system. The transmission crackled with static, but the fear in the human voice was clear. It was Colony Administrator Chun Wei, a mining engineer Min-soo had met at a trade conference 2 years ago. "Emergency transmission to all ships in range," Chun's voice said through the static. "Something has awakened in the deep mines. We've lost contact with the lower levels. The mining equipment is completely destroyed. There are massive tremors coming from below ground. Whatever is down there, it's huge and it's moving toward the surface. We need immediate evacuation assistance. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. The transmission ended with a sound that made several council members shiver. It was a roar, deep and powerful, like nothing any of them had heard before. Our long-range sensors show extensive damage to the mining facility, reported Commander Zek, the military leader of the Korthic Empire. His gray skin was marked with battle scars, and his voice carried the confidence of a warrior who had never lost a fight. The entire complex appears to have been destroyed from below. How many people were at the colony? Asked Counselor Nex, a tall Zephyrian with flowing robes and silver skin. 3,000 miners and support staff, Minsu answered, reading from his datapad. Mostly humans, but also Veltari engineers and Nixarian technicians. They were mining rare crystals for starship fuel production. What could cause this kind of destruction? Thyrix asked. The mining equipment on Kepler 442b includes plasma cutters and quantum drills. Very few things in the galaxy can destroy technology like that. Across the galaxy in the ancient archives of the Valorian homeworld, elderly scholar Priest Neth was having the same thoughts. He had been studying old texts when the emergency transmission reached his research station. The description of underground destruction and massive roars reminded him of something he had read in the oldest books. Neth moved slowly through the archive chambers, his 6 arms carefully handling manuscripts that were thousands of years old. The Valorians had been exploring space when most other species were still learning to make fire. Their records contained knowledge that the rest of the galaxy had forgotten. In a dusty corner of the deepest archive, Neth found what he was looking for. The book was written in Old Valorian, a language only a few scholars could still read. The title translated to Chronicles of the Firebreath Wars. As Neth read the ancient text, his large eyes grew wider with each page. The book described creatures of immense size and power that had once ruled vast areas of space. They were called Dragon Lords, beings that could destroy entire fleets with their breath and level cities with their claws, according to the chronicles. The Dragon Lords had not been evil. They had served as protectors and guardians, fighting alongside warriors who shared their values of honor and sacrifice. But something had happened to them. The text was unclear about the details, but it suggested that the Dragon Lords had gone into deep sleep, waiting for the return of the Firehearts they had once served. The descriptions in the book matched the energy readings and destruction patterns reported from Kepler 442b. Neth realized with growing alarm that one of the ancient Dragon Lords might have awakened after thousands of years of sleep. Back on Nexus Station, the Galactic Council was debating what to do about the crisis. Commander Zek stood up from his seat, his massive frame casting a shadow across the table. The Korthic Empire offers our best warships for this rescue mission, he announced. My warriors are trained for dangerous situations like this. We can have a full battle fleet at Kepler 442b within 2 days. The Veltari Federation also volunteers our forces, added Admiral Kess, a female Veltari with intricate tattoos covering her purple skin. Our advanced technology and experienced soldiers are perfect for this type of operation. Ambassador Minsu cleared his throat. Earth would like to contribute to the rescue effort as well. We have ships and personnel ready to deploy immediately. The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then Commander Zek began to laugh, a harsh sound that echoed off the walls. Humans? Zek said, his voice full of disbelief. You want to send humans to handle a crisis that has destroyed an entire mining colony? This is a job for real warriors, not the species that lost 3,000 soldiers in a single battle. The Korthic commander makes a valid point, Thyrix said diplomatically. Perhaps it would be better if the more experienced species handled this situation. Humans are still new to galactic affairs. Minsu felt his face turn red with embarrassment and anger, but he kept his voice calm. With respect, Counselor Thyrix, humans have been serving in galactic conflicts for over 50 years. We have experienced soldiers and capable ships. Experienced at losing, muttered Admiral Kess, causing several other representatives to chuckle. The galaxy's newest and weakest species should leave this to their betters, added Counselor Nex. Perhaps humans can help with supply runs or medical support, but actual rescue operations require real military strength. Despite the insults, Minsu pressed forward. Earth officially volunteers for the rescue mission. Our people are in danger on that colony, and we have the right to help save them. Commander Zek waved his hand dismissively. Fine, but when your weak human soldiers panic and run away, don't expect the rest of us to save them. The Council voted to approve a joint rescue mission. The Korthic Empire would provide the main military force. The Veltari Federation would supply advanced technology, and several other species would contribute ships and equipment. Humans were allowed to participate, but only in a support role. As the meeting ended, Minsu felt frustrated and angry. Once again, the galaxy had dismissed humanity as weak and incapable. But he also felt determined. This mission might be humanity's chance to prove that they deserved respect among the stars. On the other side of the galaxy, Scholar Priest Neth finished reading the ancient chronicles. He immediately sent an urgent message to the Galactic Council, but he knew it would take days to reach them. By then, the rescue mission would already be underway. In his message, Neth tried to explain what the rescuers would face on Kepler 442b. The ancient dragon lords were not simple monsters to be fought with weapons and technology. They were intelligent beings with powers beyond current understanding. The chronicles suggested that only warriors with fire hearts could hope to communicate with them or gain their respect, but what exactly was a fire heart? The ancient texts were unclear about this crucial detail. Neth could only hope that someone among the rescue team would figure it out before it was too late. Meanwhile, in his small apartment on Nexus Station, Captain Kim Tae-ho received a message on his personal communicator. It was from Ambassador Minsu, asking for volunteers for a dangerous rescue mission to Kepler-442b. Tae-ho sat in his chair, looking at the message for a long time. He had no official military rank anymore. His pension was small, and most aliens considered him a failure. He had nothing left to prove and no reason to risk his life for people who didn't respect him. But 3,000 people were trapped or dead on a distant planet. Among them were humans who had families waiting for them to come home. And despite everything he had been through, Tae-ho still believed that protecting innocent people was worth any sacrifice. He typed a simple reply to the ambassador's message. I volunteer. The rescue ship approached Kepler 442b like a metal whale swimming through the darkness of space. Captain Kim Tae-ho stood at the observation window, watching the planet grow larger as they descended toward the surface. The world looked peaceful from orbit, with blue oceans and green continents, but he could see the black scar where the mining colony had once stood, behind him. The main cargo hold buzzed with activity as the rescue team prepared their equipment. Commander Brex, a massive Korthic warrior with bronze skin and metal implants in his skull, barked orders at his soldiers. 20 Korthic Marines checked their plasma rifles and energy shields, their heavy armor making loud, clanking sounds as they moved. The Veltari contingent worked more quietly. Their purple-skinned technicians calibrated scanning devices and medical equipment with precise movements. They wore lighter armor but carried more advanced weapons that hummed with contained energy. In the corner of the cargo hold, the human team looked small and poorly equipped compared to the others. Tae-ho wore his old military armor, patched and repaired many times over the years. His plasma rifle was an older model that most armies had replaced years ago. His metal left arm made small mechanical sounds as he checked his equipment. Leahai sat nearby, adjusting her recording gear and protective suit. She had convinced Ambassador Minsu to let her document the mission, though many of the alien soldiers had complained about bringing a journalist. Her camera was military-grade, designed to work in dangerous environments. Dr. Hwang So-young, the human xenobiologist, studied data readings on a portable computer. She was a small woman with short gray hair and thick glasses, but her reputation for understanding alien life forms had earned her a place on the team. She looked nervous but determined. "Approaching landing zone," announced the ship's pilot over the communication system. "Sensors show massive structural damage. No life signs detected on the surface." Through the window, Teho could see the remains of the mining facility. What had once been a complex of metal buildings and drilling towers was now a field of twisted wreckage. Giant claw marks scored the ground in patterns that looked almost artistic, as if something had been writing messages in the earth. The ship landed with a soft thump on a flat area away from the worst damage. Commander Brex immediately took charge of the mission, his voice booming through the cargo hold. "Listen carefully," Brex announced. "We have two objectives. First, find any survivors from the mining colony. Second, identify and neutralize whatever caused this destruction. My scouts report energy readings unlike anything in our databases." He pointed at the humans with a dismissive gesture. "The human team will remain with the ship and handle supply duties. Real soldiers will conduct the actual rescue operation." Teho started to object, but Dahai put a hand on his arm. She had learned that arguing with alien commanders usually made things worse for humans. Better to wait and see what they found. The main rescue team left the ship in formation, their equipment creating a small parade of lights and sounds as they moved toward the ruined mining facility. Teho watched them go, then turned to his companions. "We're not staying here," he said quietly. "Those people down there need all the help they can get." Dr. Wang looked up from her computer. "The energy readings from the deep tunnels are incredible. Whatever did this is still down there, and it's putting out power levels that shouldn't be possible." "Then we need to be careful," Teho replied, "but we also need to do our job." The human team followed the alien rescue party at a distance, staying far enough back to avoid being seen. As they walked through the destruction, Dahai recorded everything with her camera. The damage was even worse up close. Metal buildings had been torn apart like paper, and the ground was covered with strange crystalline formations that glowed with inner light. "Look at these claw marks," Dr. Wang whispered, kneeling next to a furrow in the ground. "They're over. 3 meters long and cut straight through reinforced steel. Whatever made these is enormous." They found the entrance to the mine system, a wide tunnel that descended into the planet's depths. Emergency lights still functioned along the walls, casting eerie shadows that seemed to move on their own. The alien rescue team had already gone. Inside, following a trail of scattered equipment and debris as they descended into the tunnels, the temperature began to rise. The air itself seemed to shimmer with energy, making their skin tingle. Dr. Wang's instruments went crazy, detecting power sources that defied explanation. "The readings don't make sense," she muttered, adjusting her equipment. "It's like there's a star burning somewhere beneath us." They found the first bodies 200 meters down. 3 Nexarian technicians lay crushed against the tunnel wall, their 6 arms twisted at impossible angles. Their mining equipment was melted into unrecognizable shapes, as if it had been exposed to incredible heat. "Poor souls," Dahai whispered, recording the scene with shaking hands. "What could do this to people?" Teho examined the bodies and the surrounding damage with the eye of a professional soldier. "Look at the scorch marks on the walls. This wasn't random destruction? Whatever attacked them was intelligent. It knew exactly where to strike for maximum damage." They continued deeper into the mine, following the trail of destruction. The tunnels were filled with evidence of the miners' final moments, overturned equipment carts, personal belongings scattered across the floor, blast marks from weapons that had failed to stop their attacker. Ahead of them, they could hear the voices of the alien rescue team echoing through the tunnels. Commander Brex was giving orders, his voice sharp with tension. "Spread out and search every chamber," Brex commanded. "Use maximum caution. Whatever did this might still be active." The human team reached a junction where several tunnels met in a large chamber. The walls here were covered with more of the strange crystalline formations, and the air hummed with barely contained energy. Dr. Wang's instruments were beeping constantly now, overwhelmed by the power readings. "These crystals," she said, touching one with a gloved hand. "They're not natural minerals. They're some kind of energy storage system, but the technology is unlike anything I've ever seen." Suddenly, the sound of plasma rifles echoed through the tunnels ahead. Shouts and screams followed, along with a roar that seemed to shake the very foundations of the planet. The sound was deep and powerful, like the voice of an angry god. "Contact!" Brex's voice crackled over the communication system. "We have visual on the target. It's huge, requesting immediate backup." More gunfire followed, then more screaming. The roar came again, louder this time, and the lights in the tunnel flickered. "All teams fall back," Brex ordered, his voice now filled with panic. "Fall back now, we need orbital support." Through the tunnels came the sound of running feet and frantic voices. The alien soldiers were retreating, their confident formation broken by whatever they had encountered in the depths. Teho grabbed his rifle and started moving toward the sounds of battle. "Stay here," he told Dai and Dr. Huang. "If things go bad, get back to the ship. Where are you going?" Dai called after him. "To do what I came here to do," Teho replied, disappearing into the shadowy tunnels. Behind him, the crystalline formations pulsed with brighter light, as if responding to the violence echoing through the mine. Dr. Wang watched her instruments in amazement, as the energy readings climbed to levels that should have been impossible. "Something's waking up down there," she whispered to Hai. "Something that's been sleeping for a very long time." In the deepest chambers of the mine, a voice older than civilization spoke for the first time in millennia. It was a voice that had once commanded respect across star systems, a voice that had been waiting for something specific to return to the galaxy. The voice said one word in a language that predated all current galactic civilizations. Finally. Above, the alien rescue team continued their panicked retreat, abandoning their mission and their pride in the face of something their training had never prepared them for. But deeper in the tunnels, one scarred human veteran moved steadily forward, driven by a sense of duty that no alien species had ever quite understood. The meeting that would change the balance of galactic power was only minutes away. Captain Kim Tae-ho moved through the mine tunnels like a ghost, his metal arm making only the softest mechanical sounds as he descended deeper into the planet. Behind him, the voices of the retreating alien soldiers grew fainter until only silence remained. The emergency lights flickered with each step he took, as if the entire structure was holding its breath. The tunnels here were different from the upper levels. The walls were smooth and curved, carved not by human mining equipment but by something far older. Strange symbols covered the stone surfaces, glowing with the same soft light as the crystalline formations. Taeho had seen similar markings during his service in the Outer Rim, but never anything this elaborate or ancient. The air grew warmer with each step down. His suit's temperature readings showed levels that should have been uncomfortable, but somehow the heat felt natural, almost welcoming. The energy readings on his scanner had gone completely off scale, showing power sources that defied every law of physics he knew. As Taeho rounded a bend in the tunnel, he heard something that made him freeze in place. It was breathing slow and deep, like the rhythm of ocean waves, but the sound was enormous, as if the planet itself was taking air into massive lungs. He continued forward more carefully now, his rifle ready but not raised. His military training told him to maintain defensive positions, but something deeper told him that weapons would be useless against whatever waited ahead. The tunnel opened into a chamber, so vast that his flashlight could not reach the ceiling or the far walls. The crystalline formations here were larger than buildings, pulsing with colors that had no names. They provided enough light to see the incredible space around him, a cavern that could have held entire cities. And in the center of it all was the dragon. Taeho had fought alien creatures on a dozen different worlds. He had seen the massive war beasts of the Korthic Empire and the energy beings of the Zephyrian Collective. But nothing in his 23 years of military service had prepared him for this sight. The dragon was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Its body stretched across the chamber floor like a living mountain, covered in scales that shifted between deep gold and bright silver. Each scale was larger than Taeho's entire body, and they moved with the dragon's breathing like waves on a metallic ocean. Its head was raised, revealing eyes the size of starship windows. They glowed with inner fire, ancient and intelligent, studying the small human who had dared to enter its domain. When the dragon moved its head slightly, the motion was smooth and graceful despite its enormous size. Wings that could have covered entire city blocks were folded against the dragon's sides. Even folded, they created shadows that seemed to move independently in the crystal light. The creature's claws, each one longer than Teho was tall, rested gently on the chamber floor without leaving marks in the stone. For a long moment, neither the human nor the dragon moved. They studied each other across the vast space, predator and prey, ancient power and mortal soldier. The only sound was the dragon's slow breathing in the distant hum of the crystal formations. Then the dragon spoke. Its voice filled the entire chamber, not heard through the ears but felt in the bones and blood and soul. The words came in perfect galactic standard, though they carried the weight of languages far older than any current civilization. Another comes seeking treasure from the deep places, the dragon said, its voice like distant thunder. Another, small thing with weapons and fear, here to take what does not belong to them. Teho lowered his rifle and took off his helmet, letting the dragon see his scarred face and gray-streaked hair. I'm not here for treasure, he said, his voice small. In the enormous space. I'm here for the people who were trapped when you woke up. The dragon's great head tilted slightly, a gesture that would have been curious on a smaller creature but was overwhelming at this scale. People? The small diggers who scraped at my resting place with their loud machines? 3,000 miners. And their families? Teho replied. They didn't know you were here. They were just trying to make a living. I felt their fear when I stirred from my sleep, the dragon said. I felt their terror as they ran from chambers they had no right to enter. Some escaped, others did not. Such is the way of things. The dragon's eyes focused on Teho with increasing interest. But you are different from the others who came before. You stand in my presence without trembling. You speak to me as an equal rather than a god or monster. This is unusual. I've seen enough monsters in my time, Teho said. You're not one of them, am I not? The dragon's voice carried what might have been amusement. I have destroyed their machines and driven away their warriors. I have made the stone itself shake with my anger. What am I if not a monster? Teho thought carefully before answering. Something about this conversation felt important, as if his next words would determine more than just his own survival. You're a guardian, he said finally. You've been sleeping here for thousands of years, protecting something. The miners disturbed your rest, so you defended your territory? That's not evil, that's just survival. The dragon was quiet for a long time, its massive eyes studying the small human with growing intensity. When it spoke again, its voice carried a note of wonder. In all my years of sleep, I have dreamed of warriors with hearts of fire, the dragon said. Beings who fought not for conquest or glory, but to protect those who could not protect themselves. I dreamed of their return to the galaxy, though I had begun to believe it was only wishful thinking. The great creature began to move, shifting its enormous body with surprising grace. As it moved, the crystal formations pulsed brighter, responding to its presence like flowers turning toward the sun. Tell me, small fireheart, the dragon continued. What battles have you fought? What sacrifices have you made? What burdens do you carry in that scarred flesh? Teho felt something strange happening. The dragon's words seemed to resonate with memories he had tried to forget, experiences that had shaped him into the man he was today. Without fully understanding why, he began to speak. I fought in the Outer Rim Wars for 23 years, he said. I led soldiers into battles where the odds were always against us. I watched good people die protecting colonies, full of strangers who never knew their names. The dragon's eyes glowed brighter as Teho continued. I lost my arm pulling wounded comrades from a burning transport ship. I've made decisions that saved thousands of lives but cost me my sleep and my peace. I've been called a hero and a coward, sometimes for the same actions. And would you do it again? The dragon asked, its voice now gentle, despite its enormous power. Would you sacrifice yourself for people who call you weak? Would you fight for those who mock your species and question your worth? Teho thought of the miners trapped somewhere in these tunnels, of the families waiting for news of the galaxy that dismissed humanity as irrelevant. He thought of Lida Hai and Dr. Huang waiting above, trusting him to somehow make things right. Yes, he said simply. I would. The dragon made a sound that might have been laughter or might have been crying. Then you are what I have been waiting for. You carry the fire heart that I served in ages past. You are worthy of what I offer. The great creature lowered its massive head until it was level with Teho, bringing its ancient eyes close enough that he could see his reflection in their golden depths. I am the last dragon, it said, keeper of memories and guardian of the deep places. I have slept for 10,000 years, waiting for the return of warriors worthy of my service. The old firehearts are gone, but their spirit lives on in you. Teho felt the weight of history pressing down on him, the sense that this moment would change everything. What are you offering? Partnership, the dragon replied. Alliance. The chance to show this galaxy what true strength looks like. Not the strength of weapons or numbers, but the strength of souls willing to sacrifice for others. Before Teho could respond, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the tunnels above. The alien rescue teams had regrouped and were coming back, probably with heavier weapons and orbital support. The dragon heard them too, its great head turning toward the tunnel entrance. Your allies return with fear and violence in their hearts. They seek to destroy what they do not understand. They're not my allies, Teho said. They're just scared soldiers doing what they think is right. Then you must choose Fireheart, the dragon said, its voice now urgent. Stand with those who mock your kind and see only weakness, or stand with me and show them what humans are truly capable of. The footsteps grew louder, accompanied by the whine of charging energy weapons. Soon, the chamber would be filled with alien soldiers ready to fight the most powerful being any of them had ever encountered. Teho looked into the dragon's ancient eyes and made his choice. Captain Kim Teho looked into the dragon's golden eyes and felt something impossible happening. The world around him began to shift and blur, as if reality itself was bending. The chamber filled with light that seemed to come from everywhere. At once, and suddenly he was no longer standing on the cold stone floor, he was flying through space and time, seeing visions that belonged to the dragon's ancient memories. Teho saw worlds he had never visited, civilizations that had existed long before humans learned to make fire. He watched as beings from a dozen different species fought side by side against forces of darkness and destruction. These warriors came from different planets and had different shapes, but they all shared something that made them brothers in battle. These were the Firehearts, the dragon's voice echoed in his mind. Not a single species, but a way of being. Warriors who understood that true strength comes from protecting others, not from conquering them. In the visions Teho saw the dragon in its younger days, fighting alongside these ancient warriors. It breathed fire that could melt starships, but it used its power only to defend. Its claws could tear through metal and stone, but it struck only at those who threatened the innocent. We were guardians, the dragon continued, sharing memories that were older than recorded history. We fought not for glory or treasure, but because someone had to stand between the darkness and the light. Teho watched as the Fireheart warriors grew old and died, one by one. The dragon's sadness filled the visions like a heavy fog. As the last of its companions passed away, the great creature had retreated to the deep places of the galaxy, hoping to sleep until worthy allies returned. I waited for 10,000 years, the dragon said, its mental voice full of loneliness. I dreamed of the day when new Firehearts would emerge. Sometimes I thought it would never happen. The visions changed, and now Teho was seeing his own memories, but through the dragon's perception. He watched himself as a young soldier, volunteering for the most dangerous missions to keep his squad mates safe. He saw himself losing his arm while rescuing wounded comrades from a burning transport, refusing medical evacuation until everyone else was safe. The dragon showed him the Battle of the Crimson Nebula from a different perspective. Instead of seeing a human defeat, the dragon saw 3,000 soldiers who chose to fight impossible odds to buy time for civilian evacuations. It saw Tejo making the hardest decision of his life, ordering a retreat that saved 50 lives while sacrificing any chance of military victory. "You carry the same fire," the dragon said, and Tejo could feel the ancient creature's respect warming his soul. "You have made the same choices. You understand the same truths. The fire heart burns as bright in humans as it ever did in the ancient warriors." Through their mental connection, Tejo shared his own memories with the dragon. He showed the great creature what it meant to be human in a galaxy that saw his species as weak and worthless. He shared the frustration of being dismissed by alien commanders, the pain of losing good soldiers to politicians' bad decisions, the loneliness of carrying burdens that others couldn't understand. The dragon absorbed these memories with growing amazement. "Your species is young, but you have already learned what took others millennia to understand. You know that power without purpose is meaningless. You know that victory without honor is hollow." The mental connection deepened, and Tejo began to understand how the dragon saw the galaxy. Through ancient eyes, he witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, the endless cycle of species that gained power only to use it for conquest and destruction. The dragon had watched empire after empire crumble because their leaders forgot that strength was meant to protect, not dominate. "The Korthik were once fire hearts," the dragon revealed, showing Tejo visions of gray-skinned warriors who fought to defend their homeworld from invaders. But they forgot their purpose when they became the invaders. "The Veltari once stood for justice and peace, but power corrupted them into merchants who sell weapons to anyone with enough credits." Tejo saw the truth that the dragon had learned over thousands of years. Every species in the galaxy had the potential for greatness, but most chose the easier path of conquest and greed. Only a few individuals in each generation remembered what it truly meant to be a warrior. "That is why I chose to sleep," the dragon explained. "I could not bear to watch more civilizations lose their way. But your memories give me hope. Humanity may be young and small, but you have not yet forgotten the fire that makes warriors truly strong." The visions shifted again, and now Tejo was seeing the present moment from above. He watched Dr. Huang So-young working frantically with her instruments in the upper tunnels, trying to understand the energy patterns that filled the mine. Her readings showed something that amazed her. The crystalline formations were not just storing energy, they were storing memories. "The crystals are memory banks," the dragon explained. "Every being who has died in these caverns over the millennia has left traces of their experiences in the stone. I have absorbed all of their stories, their fears, their courage, their love. It is how I learned to recognize the fire heart when I saw it again." Through the crystals, Tejo felt the presence of all those who had died here. The miners who had panicked when the dragon awakened. The ancient warriors who had once served alongside dragons in battles across the stars. Explorers and soldiers. And ordinary people who had faced death with courage or fear. All of them now part of the great creature's eternal memory. But there was something else in the crystals. Something that made the dragon's eyes glow brighter with excitement. Hidden among the older memories were traces of other humans, scattered across the galaxy, who carried the same fire heart that burned in Tejo. "You are not alone," the dragon said, its mental voice filled with wonder. "There are others of your kind who understand what you understand. Humans who choose sacrifice over safety, duty over comfort, honor over survival. The fire heart is spreading through your species like seeds carried on the wind." Above them, the sounds of approaching soldiers grew louder. Commander Brex was leading a larger force this time, equipped with heavy weapons and orbital support coordinates. They came not to rescue but to destroy, driven by fear of something they could not understand. The dragon's massive head turned toward the tunnel entrance, and Tejo felt its sadness at what was about to happen. "They come with violence in their hearts," the dragon said. "They see only a monster to be slain, not a guardian to be respected. If I defend myself, many will die. If I do not, they will destroy these caverns and all the memories they contain." Tejo understood the choice before him. He could stand with the alien forces, try to convince them that the dragon was not a threat, and probably watch them attack anyway. Or he could stand with the dragon and be branded a traitor to his own species. But as he felt the weight of 10,000 years of loneliness in the dragon's memories, as he understood the pain of being the last of his kind in a galaxy that had forgotten what he stood for, Tejo realized there was no choice at all. "I stand with you," he said aloud, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "Not against humanity, but for what humanity could become, for what we should be." The dragon's joy flooded through their mental connection like warm sunlight. "Then let us show them what Firehearts can accomplish together," the ancient creature said. "Let us remind the galaxy what true strength looks like." As the first alien soldiers appeared at the tunnel entrance, weapons raised and ready to fire, Tejo stepped forward to stand beside the last dragon. The sight that greeted the soldiers would become legend across the galaxy, a scarred human veteran, barely reaching the great creature's ankle, standing in partnership with a being that could destroy fleets with its breath. The dragon lowered its massive head in a gesture of respect to its new ally, and Tejo reached out with his remaining hand to touch the ancient scales. The connection between them flared brighter than the crystalline formations, a bond that would reshape the balance of power among the stars. Commander Breck stared in shock at the impossible scene before him. Everything he had been taught about human weakness, about their inability to command respect from truly powerful beings, crumbled in that single moment. The age of humanity's dismissal was about to end. The tunnel entrance filled with alien soldiers as Commander Brex led his reinforced rescue team into the vast chamber. 20 Korthic Marines in heavy armor raised their plasma rifles, while Veltari technicians activated energy shields and scanning equipment. Behind them came soldiers from 4 other species, all armed with the most advanced weapons their civilizations could provide. They had come prepared for war against a monster. Instead, they found something that challenged everything they believed about power and respect in the galaxy. Captain Kim Tae-ho stood beside the last dragon, his scarred hand resting on scales that glowed like molten gold. The sight was impossible to process. A human veteran, dismissed and mocked by every species present, standing as an equal partner with a being that could level cities with its breath. Commander Breck stared at the scene, his bronze face showing confusion and disbelief. "Human," he called out, his voice echoing in the enormous chamber. "Step away from the creature. We have orbital bombardment ready to glass this entire area." The dragon's great head turned toward the assembled soldiers, and when it spoke, its voice filled their minds as well as their ears. "You come to my domain with weapons and threats. You speak of destruction as if it were wisdom. Have your species learned nothing in all the centuries since the Firehearts walked among you?" "We don't negotiate with monsters," Brex replied, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. The dragon's presence was overwhelming, making even the largest Korthic warriors feel small and fragile. "Monster?" The dragon's laughter was like distant thunder. "I, who have protected the innocent for 10,000 years, am called monster by those who sell weapons to slavers and conquerors." The irony is deep enough to drown in. Dr. Huang So-young and Lida Hai arrived at the chamber entrance, pushing past the alien soldiers to see what was happening. Dahai immediately began recording. Knowing she was witnessing something that would change galactic history, Dr. Huang stared at her, instruments in amazement as they detected energy patterns unlike anything in known science. "Tejo!" "Out. What's happening? Are you all right?" "I'm exactly where I need to be," Tejo replied, not taking his eyes off the assembled soldiers. "This is the last dragon, keeper of ancient knowledge and guardian of the deep places. It's not our enemy." Admiral Kess, the Veltari commander, stepped forward with her weapon raised. "The creature destroyed an entire mining colony. Thousands are dead because of it." "Thousands are alive because of it," the dragon corrected, its golden eyes focusing on the purple-skinned admiral. "When the miners broke through into my resting chamber with their crude machines, I could have destroyed them all in my first moment of awakening. Instead, I gave them time to flee. Most escaped. Only those who remained to fight or loot paid the price for their greed." Through their mental connection, the dragon shared its memories of the mining incident with Tejo. The human veteran saw the truth. Panicked miners running for the surface while a few stayed behind to steal valuable crystals. The dragon had defended itself only against those who attacked it or refused to leave its sacred space. It protected the innocent, Tahoe said, turning to face the alien soldiers. Just like we're supposed to do. Just like real warriors should do. Commander Brex raised his plasma rifle. Enough talk. Human, you have 10 seconds to move away from that thing before we open fire. No, Tahoe said simply. The word echoed through the chamber like a challenge. Every alien soldier present understood its meaning. A human, a member of the galaxy's weakest and newest species, was defying the combined military might of half a dozen civilizations. You would choose that creature over your own kind? Admiral Kess demanded. I choose honor over fear, Tahoe replied. I choose protection over destruction. I choose to stand with someone who understands what strength really means. The dragon moved then, its massive form shifting with fluid grace. But instead of preparing to attack, it did something that stunned every being in the chamber. The great creature lowered its enormous head, bringing its ancient eyes level with Tahoe's scarred face. Fireheart, the dragon said, its voice now gentle despite its immense power. You honor the ancient ways. You remember what your species? Warriors forgot long ago. Will you accept the bond that was once offered to the greatest among your kind? Without hesitation, Tahoe reached out with his remaining hand and placed it on the dragon's snout. The moment their skin touched, light erupted from the crystalline formations throughout the chamber. The energy was not destructive but transformative. Carrying the weight of 10,000 years of accumulated wisdom and power, the alien soldiers watched in shock as the bond formed between human and dragon. They could feel the energy washing over them, touching something deep in their genetic memories. For just a moment, they remembered what their own ancestors had once been. Protectors instead of conquerors. Guardians instead of destroyers. Impossible, whispered Commander Brex, lowering his weapon. Dragons serve no one. They bow to no one. This one serves those who are worthy, the dragon replied, its voice now carrying a note of joy that it had not felt for millennia. This one recognizes the fire heart that burns in humanity. Through this warrior I offer my service to any who choose protection over conquest. The chamber filled with a new sound, the rumble of massive movements from deep within the planet. Dr. Wang's instruments went wild as she detected multiple energy signatures, all similar to the dragon but smaller and more distant. There are others, she said in amazement. Other creatures like this one, waking up all across the galaxy, the dragon nodded its massive head. My awakening has called to those who still sleep in the deep places. They sense the return of the Firehearts. They come to judge whether this galaxy is ready for guardians once again. Through the chamber's communication system, alerts began streaming in from across known space. Ancient beings were emerging from hidden places on dozens of worlds. Some were dragons like this one, others were different but equally powerful creatures that had slept for millennia. All of them were seeking the same thing, beings worthy of their respect and partnership. Admiral Kess stared at the readings on her scanner. Command is reporting contact with an ancient being on Veltari Prime. It's asking for humans specifically, only humans. Same here, reported a Zephyrian officer. Something massive just rose from the ocean depths of our homeworld. It's transmitting in human languages. Commander Brex received similar reports from Korthic space. Across the galaxy, the ancient guardians were awakening and looking for the species that had proven itself worthy of their respect. The dragon raised its head and spoke to all the assembled soldiers. You came here expecting to find a monster to destroy. Instead, you have witnessed the birth of a new age. Humanity has earned what your species lost long ago, the partnership of the Guardians. Tahoe felt the weight of history settling on his shoulders. In a single moment, everything had changed. Humanity would no longer be the galaxy's newest and weakest species. They would be the allies of beings whose power dwarfed anything the current civilizations could imagine. What happens now? Dahai asked, her camera still recording every moment of this historic encounter. The dragon's eyes glowed brighter as it answered, "Now the galaxy learns what strength truly means. Not the strength of weapons or numbers, but the strength of souls willing to sacrifice for others. The Firehearts have returned, and the universe will never be the same." As if to emphasize the dragon's words, reports continued flooding in from across known space. Ancient guardians were choosing human partners on world after world. Recognizing something in humanity that other species had lost or never possessed, Commander Brex slowly lowered his weapon completely. For the first time in his military career, the veteran Korthek warrior found himself looking up at a human with something approaching respect. "Captain Kim," he said formally, "it appears we have misjudged your species." Taeho smiled, the first genuine smile anyone had seen from him in years. "We've been misjudging ourselves too. Maybe it's time we all learned better." The dragon's laughter filled the chamber like music, the sound of joy returning to a galaxy that had forgotten what it meant to have true guardians. The age of humanity's dismissal was over. The age of the Firehearts had begun. Above them, the stars themselves seemed to shine brighter, as if the universe itself was celebrating the return of warriors who understood that the greatest strength came not from the power to destroy, but from the courage to protect.